Hello, my name is Lucy Windsor and welcome to this week's Epic Insight, which is all about clearing the mental clutter. My friend and professional organiser Denise Allen was speaking the other day on the subject of clutter clearing and how to make some changes in your home. And one thing that she said that really struck me, was so powerful, was she said that clutter is postponed decisions. And I thought, wow, really? So I started to look about my house and thought about the areas where we've got a little bit of clutter. So in those drawers that we've got all sorts of odds and sods, and maybe we'll never use them again, but yeah, I haven't made a decision that we're not going to use them again. I'll just keep them there all in one place. And there's the papers that are a little pile of papers, you know, those ones that, yeah, you do need to do something, you need to make a decision. But for now, they can just stay there in that pile. And maybe out in the garden, yeah, I have got an area out in the garden that's a bit messy, and it is indeed, it's waiting for a decision. Are we going to pave or plant it? So it does actually seem to be true that clutter is postponed decisions. So what about the brain? Now, so many of our clients that come to us say to us that they have a problem with being able to sleep and being able to turn their brains off because they just keep going round. It's like being in a spin cycle, and the more that you're thinking, the heavier the load and the longer the spin cycle. And I think we've all been there at some point, but some people are there far too often for their own liking. And quite frankly, it's exhausting. And that's the biggest problem, is it affects your motivation, it affects your ability to concentrate, and you just feel desperately tired most of the day. Crawl into bed at night and then you're awake. You can't sleep because your brain's going round and round. There's a study I'd like to share with you, and it is important to the topic, by Professor Raghunnathan, and I hope that I've pronounced his name right, and he's affiliated with the University of Texas. Now, he did a study with his students looking at thought and he wanted to know what their spontaneous thought were. So they're the thoughts that you have without any sort of will at all, and before you've put any positive spin or any rationalization on your thoughts. Before the study, the students on average predicted that their thoughts would be up to 75% positive, between 60 and 75% actually. The reality of the survey was rather different. The reality was that between 60 and 70% of their thoughts were negative. And interestingly, the negative thoughts all fell into a similar pot, and the pot is external validation or external comparison with others. Now, why is this important to the mental clutter? Well, it does seem that if you're going through your life and you're not making decisions, you will have all these sorts of thoughts that are coming up. These thoughts that, you know, am I good enough? You know, is somebody going to beat me to it? Are they going to be better? Am I going to be rejected? All these sorts of thoughts that people have are all related to decisions, and those people who make decisions are likely to have less of this sort of thought process going on. If you look at the most successful leaders, they make many decisions, but they make a lot of them up front. They decide, for instance, what they're going to wear. They decide how they're going to come across, how they're going to represent themselves, and how they're going to represent their company, and how they're going to represent their team. They decide what the team culture is going to be and how they're going to create that culture. They decide what standards and expectations they're going to set for themselves and for their team. They decide how they're going to meet the objectives that have been set for them. And they decide how they're going to deliver value for the organisation that they work for. All these decisions can be made up front. And if you make these decisions up front, it reduces the opportunity for your brain to check in with what other people are doing. So instead of having that thought process, is somebody going to be better than me? Am I doing enough? Am I going to be chosen? Am I going to be rejected? All those sorts of thoughts that people do have throughout the day that creates more and more of this mental clutter. They are minimized because you've made decisions about who you are and what your character is and how you're going to put yourself out into the world. So I hope that this has been useful to you, and please do, if you have a success with this, please share it, because we love to hear your success stories. In the meantime, sleep well.